I don't know if many of you have noticed, but I've been a lot more shifty and weird breathy lately, and it's because I'm having near daily anxiety. You know, the burnout was real. This had never really felt like a job before. Videos that used to get 50, 60, 70, 80,000 views were starting to get 10,000 views. I have started losing a lot of subscribers, hundreds, thousands a day. I couldn't figure it out. I can't figure it out. I think there are some reasons that are causing it. I don't even really have a great answer. But what I do have is an action plan. I need to be better. And to avoid having my wife sell her feet pictures, I have hired a researcher full-time.
Every 15 minutes, a YouTuber pimps out the feet of his wife or significant other. Pedal sex trafficking is a serious crime, and if you know any perpetrators or victims, make sure to report it to the FBI today. Recently, Jeremy Hambley has been having some issues with his YouTube channel. He hasn't been getting the amount of views that he used to, and his revenue is tanking. What has caused Jeremy's implosion? Now, if you're a quartering fan, this news might be a bit of a surprise to you, but it's actually been a long time coming. We're going to be taking a look at some of his previous posts and videos to try and understand what exactly has been going on here. And most importantly, we're going to be taking a look at what his fans have to say. But before we get into that, there's one thing that we really need to discuss. And that, of course, is pedal sex trafficking. Of course, you might think that Jeremy was just making a joke about pimping out his wife's feet, putting her feet pics online so people could get a little bit of degenerate enjoyment from it. But was the quartering really joking? You see, the quartering has an interesting past when it comes to feet pics. Some of you guys might remember Jack Murphy, a former Timcast regular and outed cuck who got his name dragged all across the internet. Well, the quartering ended up getting a hold of some of Jack Murphy's nudes. Let's take a quick listen to how he got a hold of those in the first place.
Do you know how I found out about the porn?
Yeah.
Wondering.
One of his fans who jerked off to it sent it to me.
Really?
No.
And he even had, and the funny thing was, like, I totally respect this, so don't meme on him, but I'm going to share it because I do respect what he said. So he sends it to me, right? And he goes, clearly I have a type, so if you ever want to thank me, you could send me a picture. And I was like, no fucking way, dude. Like, I thought about, like, if he would have asked me for a foot picture, I would have sent it to him probably. I would have been like, all right, dude, like, here you go. Whack off to it. I don't care.
Some people have already been asking the quartering for explicit content, and Jeremy was willing to give his feet pics. I don't think the quartering needs to pimp out his wife's feet to make it big on OnlyFans. He doesn't need to subcontract that work out. He could do it himself. He's already got one potential customer. And who knows, maybe many more would jump on that train. And yes, I meant train in a literal sense. Now, maybe I shouldn't be saying these things. Who knows, maybe Jeremy's going to get some big ideas. Now, back to the whole topic of this video. What's going on with Jeremy's channel, and why is it imploding? Let me show you a post from a few weeks ago that made me realize that something was going on. Initially, Jeremy's channel mostly just talked about nerd culture, but then he diverged and started talking about hard politics. This change was very noticeable in 2020, but almost complete by 2021. It makes sense why you'd end up wanting to make this change, because when you look at channels like Tim Pool's, for example, you see how he'll get, $300 super chats, $500 super chats, and oftentimes he won't even read those. If you talk about something like Dungeons and Dragons or comic books, it might be really niche. If you talk about video games or Disney Plus shows, it'll be a significantly broader appeal, but still a niche. But if you're just talking hard politics, you could potentially appeal to about half of the country. It isn't really just the quartering who's made this pivot. You can see a lot of people like Geeks and Gamers, they've made similar pivots as well. And almost 2 weeks ago, Jeremy made this post on YouTube. He said, "An apology, I have been focusing too much on hard news lately and have let you all down on the video game and movie coverage. While hard news will always be a part of the channel, I lost sight of how we got here and promised to be better. In fact, I've got 2 video game related videos for you today." Now, Jeremy shifted to hard politics because it gave him an increased amount of revenue and views. As I mentioned, it has a much broader appeal. So if he was still making a lot of money and getting a lot of views from it, And why would he stop? And that is when I realized, oh, he's having some issues with his channel. He's trying to dig back to his roots and kind of revive his old base because he realized he is no longer doing as well as he used to do. So Jeremy decided to make that shift, and let's just see what happened. Just a little bit later, Jeremy realized his issue wasn't the type of content he was making. People weren't watching it because of something else. What could it have been? Jeremy said, "Are you done with the culture war videos? It seems like every video on Hollywood or video game stuff is totally tanking, and I am wondering what my viewers actually want more of." And one of the options he gave was, "I'm not watching as much for a different reason," in comments. Now, if you check the Quartering's comment section, you'll see he was getting eviscerated by his own audience. One viewer said, "Honestly, it's a promotion of your other endeavors. I like your content, but can't live through another coffee commercial." Another viewer said, "You show a short clip and then dive into an ad. Of course people are turning it off." Another person said, "The topics are interesting, but your knowledge is as deep as the articles you read directly from." Another person said, "The clickbaity titles, i.e. Trump or whoever erupts, when it's more like Trump made a reasonable statement or K. Anthony was on the run, followed by K. Anthony might get off, whiplash fatigue." Another commenter said, "Too many clickbait titles, way too many." Another viewer said it takes forever for you to get to the actual point of the video. And finally, we see this comment, which racked up a whopping 353 likes, that said, "Clickbait titles reached the peak effectiveness after Trump won." They went on to say, "When everything is a bombshell, nothing is a bombshell." It's starting to get to a point where the clickbait went from a stretch to now an all-out lie. So most of these viewers are saying that either the Quartering is just trying to squeeze every little penny he can, constantly having all of these ads, or that his videos don't really have a point to him, it's just shallow and vapid, he didn't really think much about it, he just kind of read an article, he bogs every video down with tons of nonsense, and that he is extremely clickbaity. Now on the subject of clickbait, some people might be thinking that the Quartering is just doing a performance here. He's just pretending that there's blood in the water, that way people will go get a HELOC on their house and they'll buy thousands of dollars of his coffee. But I actually think this is a real problem his channel is facing. Just take a look at what he said in his video.
The stress of having so much staff was creating that. And so I have trimmed fat.
Now, I'm sure the Quartering means that in just a figurative sense.
I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but I went from a staff of about 10 people to I'm going down to about 3 people. And the 3 people I'm keeping are going to have to do more work. But they are also the people that when I shared with them that I was experiencing immense stress at what's going on with the channel and, you know, what's going on, because I'm very transparent. I share with most of my employees how much money I make even. Like, what boss does that? I share my analytics with them, right? So these individuals came to me and said, "Look, I'll work for free. Let's get through this rough patch. I'll take on extra work." And it was a very proud moment for me.
Jeremy had 3 employees who told him that they would work for free. I'm hoping that he's still paying them something, and it just means that they're just clocking in a little bit of extra time or maybe taking on a bit more responsibility, but hopefully he's still paying them well. Now, this is not the first time Jeremy has had to gut one of his companies before. He had a publication called The Publica, and he had to fire about 10 people. It seems for the longest time Jeremy was oblivious as to what was going on with his channel, The Quartering. Why were people no longer wanting to watch him? That's why he thought he had to switch topics and talk a little bit more about pop culture. The problem is the issue wasn't the message, it was the messenger. So here the Quartering says that, once upon a time it was okay to just make these minimal effort videos where you just play a clip and then you go, whoa, and you pretend that you're surprised or excited. But the problem is that it wasn't really ever okay for him to make low effort, brain rot content that wasn't really adding anything of value. A lack of research, a lack of entertainment value, that was all eventually going to catch up to him one day. And it seems like it finally has. Jeremy wasn't able to run for that long. No, that's not a fat joke. Now the question is can Jeremy put in more effort? Does he have the ability to make high quality videos? And let's take a quick look to see about how he's going to address the situation.
The other big good piece of feedback is that, Jeremy, you're not providing enough in-depth enough additional value in your videos. And you know what? Fair point. I think the market has shifted and it's no longer okay just to have to, just to read an article and give my, whoa, that's crazy. I need to be better. And to avoid having my wife sell her feet pictures, I have hired a researcher full-time. Her job is to help me formulate these videos to add more information to them, to teach something rather than to read an article and react.
I really think that this is a big mistake. The reason why people like listening to online commentators is because it makes you feel a little bit more real. People can kind of have like this parasocial connection and they go, oh, this is just some guy broadcasting out of his basement. It gives like a plebeian feel to it. But Jeremy just hiring somebody else to kind of tell him what to say, I think that kind of makes him no different from a network where you have handlers who are telling you, you should say this, you should talk about this is your script, and then he doesn't really think about it. In my opinion, a lot of these YouTubers are no different from the mainstream media. They don't have any fresh ideas, they don't have talent, they just outsource that to other people. I think authenticity goes a long way, especially when you're on the internet. And it's really strange when big companies and wealthy individuals try to fabricate authenticity. Like how Brett Cooper in the Daily Wire made it seem like she was broadcasting in her dorm room, but in reality it was a studio that they made look like a college girl's dorm room. Nobody's perfectly honest or authentic, but eventually inauthenticity catches up to you. The Quartering really does seem to be serious about the decline of his YouTube channel and says starting tomorrow a maximum of 1 ad read per day, less clickbait titles and thumbs, more information per video, a hired researcher, so it's not him, he doesn't actually know the stuff he's talking about, someone else will do that. Better/more interesting editing, shorter videos when necessary, no extending time for extended time's sake. I am sorry I got complacent, it's going to take some time to make up for that, but I really think that you're going to like the new direction. So what do you think the Quartering is going to do? Is he just saying this to try and get a little attention? Is he going to give up after a day? Or do you think he's actually going to try and be a little more honest, less clickbait, making videos that actually have value in it and that have a little more research and better editing? Or do you think that he's just saying this and hoping that more people will watch his channel again? Let me know what you think in the comments section, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, or...
You are a hoe ass